Hi, I'm Brad, Certified Financial Planner and your Retirement Readiness Coach, here with Matt Callahan, Certified Financial Planner and Lead Advisor. And today we're going to talk to you about ways to lower your tax bill in retirement and avoid the ticking tax time bomb that potentially looms. We're going to use a case study to talk about things like required minimum distributions, Roth conversions, Medicare surcharge premiums, Social Security taxes, net investment income tax, and ways that you can avoid stepping on that ticking tax time bomb to save money on taxes in retirement and have a wonderful financial future. I've got good news and bad news today. The good news is you've done a good job of planning and saving, and you're getting closer to transitioning into retirement, or you're in the early phases of retirement. Great job. The bad news, because of all the money you've put into IRAs and 401ks, you have massive tax bills looming on the horizon. In fact, taxes are going to be your number one expense, followed by a close second to healthcare expenses in your retirement. So the good news is that with proactive planning and advanced planning techniques and strategies, we can help you to lower that tax bill in retirement. And today we're going to show you how. So I've got Matt Callahan, Certified Financial Planner here, Lead Advisor, who's going to help us just kind of think through how do we avoid the ticking tax time bombs in retirement. So I think to start the conversation, Matt, can you explain what a required minimum distribution is? What is it? How does it work? Explain for our audience.
Yeah, so the IRS set these numbers up. They determined that if you make contributions to IRAs or 401ks, that they give you a tax deduction up front, and then these dollars grow tax deferred, which is very important to keep in mind, growing tax deferred. And so at a certain point, it could be 70 and a half, 72, 73, and then if you're born 1960 or later, your required distribution is going to be 75. So there's opportunities and there's some landmines or ticking tax time bombs that you can run into, because what happens is at these certain ages, the IRS, you have a silent business partner. So if you didn't think you were a business owner, the Uncle Sam, he's your silent business partner, and he wants his tax dollars, and he wants you to tip the IRS. By the way, overpay. All right. And so at those ages, whichever one comes to you, depending on your account value, that determines how much your required distribution is going to be for that year. So the end of the prior year, a little bit confusing, whatever the value is there, that determines what your required distribution is going to be the following year.
So they're forcing you to take out money whether you want to or not, whether you need it or not. They're making you.
Right, and so the number starts out at about 3.6% in that first year of retirement. So reference point, $1 million, you're estimated to take out about $36,000 that first year in retirement.
Okay.
Doesn't sound too big, right? You want to maybe go on that extra vacation or something like that, but that number increases each year, and as the account grows and that divisor number is getting smaller, then your required distribution is getting much larger.
Bigger, okay.
Yes.
And so for today, we've got a case study. We've got Trent and Savannah Miller. Of course, the names have been changed to protect confidentiality, but we're going to show, we're looking at a cash flow report of the required minimum distributions that are coming out of these pre-tax accounts like traditional IRAs and 401ks. And if you're listening to us today, you can see a link to the charts in the show notes below. But let's take a look at, some of these required minimum distributions, Matt, get to be quite large. Mm-hmm. We see one, $150,000, $160,000, almost $200,000 per year. That's whether they want it or not. So talk to me about kind of how do we avoid this? If we don't want these large required minimum distributions, what can we do to lower them?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you have this chart here. It just shows the importance of doing the tax planning well before you think that tax planning needs to be done. And so some of the things you can do ahead of time is Roth conversions, or maybe you're contributing to Roth IRAs instead of traditional IRAs or 401ks.
Okay.
These things are great as well. You don't get a tax deduction up front,
okay,
but they grow tax deferred and then can come out totally tax free,
okay, if
you satisfy a couple of rules. So being 59 and a half and having the account open for 5 years.
So talk to me a little bit about the Roth conversions. Mm-hmm. So let's say like Trent and Savannah here, they've built up these large pre-tax accounts, and they see on the horizon that there's going to be massive required minimum distributions coming out. Talk to me about the Roth conversions. What's a Roth conversion? How does it work? What are the mechanics around it?
That's a great question. So simply put, a Roth conversion is just taking your traditional 401k or traditional IRA and taking a piece of it or all of it and converting it into a Roth IRA. This comes with opportunities and can also cause taxes up front. So keep in mind, whatever the amount is that you pull out to do conversion, those dollars are taxable at ordinary income. So you could be creating a tax time bomb today for doing those conversions.
Okay, so in other words, be mindful that you want to do the conversions when your income bracket is lower, but be careful not to convert too much.
Right, but again, I would look at your financial plan, almost a no-brainer to do it if you're in the 12% tax bracket. 22, 24% could be starting getting into a gray area.
So maybe.
Yeah, but we have seen people taking these things up and doing conversions up to 35%. And it doesn't make sense a lot of the times, but this person was very hyper-focused on what they knew the taxes that they were paying today and really wanted to transfer some tax-free wealth to the next generation.
It's a great way to pass on tax-free dollars, yeah. So in Trent and Savannah's case, when we took a look at their situation, we were projecting over a $2 million tax liability. $2 million in taxes to Uncle Sam. That's federal taxes over their lifetime. And so you can take a look at here at what we were able to do with them. And in those gap years, as Matt talked about, we did strategic Roth conversions, and we saved these guys almost $600,000 in taxes, adding millions of dollars to the bottom line, the portfolio value over time. Talk to us a little bit about kind of how this works. You can see that there's some years where we're doing conversions and then years where those RMDs gets lower. Talk us through kind of why this is the fact.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here are the gap years, which are when someone retires up until when they're taking their required minimum distributions. If you've done some planning and maybe you have some cash set aside or a taxable investment account, maybe you can use those to keep your tax bill low and live on retirement, but then do Roth conversions during these years. And so what we wanted to do is that, as we saw in the cash flow statement, they have large required minimum distributions towards the later end of life. So we wanted to take some of those tax dollars that they didn't necessarily need to fund retirement and then go pay the taxes today during those gap years.
Yeah, so clearly you need to have a plan and a strategy in place to do this.
Oh yeah, but you don't want to just look at this and say, that's the plan, I'm doing this. You really want to make this a year-by-year thing to make sure what happened this year, am I able to do Roth conversions? If so, does it make sense? And then how much tax do you want to pay?
Yeah, because things change. I mean, the tax code is constantly changing, it seems like. Inflation's changing, expenses are changing. Yeah, there's a lot of variables.
Right.
Okay. So Matt, you touched on something earlier about capital gains. And I know that in the tax code, there's a place where a capital gain, so when you sell something for a gain in a non-retirement account, there's a gain known as a capital gain. You mentioned that there's a certain spot in the tax code where you pay nothing in taxes on the capital gains. And then depending on income, it gets, so talk to us a little bit about that.
He's given away my secrets, but I'll let you all know that, so if you're in about the 12% marginal tax bracket, that means you're in the 0% long-term capital gains rate. So you're paying 0% taxes on long-term capital gains if you can do that. And just know that your capital gains taxes are typically more favorable than your ordinary income. So they could be as low as 0, could be 15 most likely, or up to 20%. So some of these things like Roth conversions can actually, bump you up into that 22% tax bracket, and then the next ticking tax time bomb is you went from 0% capital gains taxes to 15% capital gains taxes. Maybe even up to 20 if you're doing conversions and these required minimum distributions are at the same time, which then runs into another landmine is net investment income tax.
Okay, let's talk, while you're on the subject, what is that?
So net investment income tax is now an additional 3.8% tax on your capital gains rate. So you can see all these little things have this ripple effect that can just cost you a lot of money. When you think you're trying to do good and save taxes, you could be creating more taxes.
That ripple effect that you talk about. Okay, so for Trent and Savannah, those gap years, so when they retired to before when required minimum distributions were supposed to start, you had them do conversions. Talk to me about for the audience, for when people are in the 12% bracket, What is more valuable? Should they be doing Roth conversions if they're in that bracket, or should they be realizing capital gains tax-free? When do you guide for one or the other?
I mean, you could look at different strategies, maybe doing a combination of the two, or one major thing you want to consider is that if you have highly appreciated stock in your taxable account and you're trying to diversify, then it probably makes more sense to sell in the 0% tax bracket to realize those capital gains at 0% and reduce some of that risk in your portfolio.
All right, so anybody who's ridden the Magnificent Seven wave, that owns a highly concentrated position in NVIDIA or Amazon or something, okay, you're saying, so for those folks, maybe realize some gains to help them diversify, but for folks that don't have the low basis stock, maybe the Roth conversion is more valuable.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So pretty unique. Okay. You've mentioned ripple effects. Talk to us about the Medicare IRMAA, the surcharge, income related monthly adjustment amount.
So we don't like IRMAA because this is an additional tax that if you're doing some of these strategies that it could create that further ripple effect of extra taxes for you. So if you look at this chart that we're putting up, you can see as income is going up, you actually have additional premiums on your Medicare Part B and Part D, and these numbers are per person per month. And remember, what you do today will be the cause and effect for 2 years from now on the Medicare. There's a 2-year look back, so you're creating extra taxes for the next couple of years if you do something today.
Okay, so what comes to mind for our audience is, what about the retiree who's going to downsize homes? They're going to sell a home they've lived in for maybe 30 years. They've got some capital gains, maybe beyond the Section 121 exclusion of $250,000 per person. So let's say someone's going to sell a home and they're going to realize a large gain. How do you think about, how do you coach that? How do you approach that?
If they're selling the home, no matter what, I mean, it's almost inevitable that they're going to run into those IRMAA surcharges. So maybe if you're in between one of the phase-out periods here, maybe that's an opportunity to Roth conversions in that year to max out that spot since you're going to be there anyway.
Okay.
It could be a little heavy on the taxes because of your federal income taxes, but something to consider if you're going to be in a high income.
And to your point, I mean, so selling a home could potentially be another one of those ticking tax time bombs. But like you said, the Medicare look back's only 2 years. It's only going to hit you once. Okay.
Well, that's a good point, though, with the 2-year look back. So at age 63, that's really when you need to be hyper cautious on when you're doing these Roth conversions,
Right.
because that's going to trigger what the IRMAA surcharges are going to be for your Medicare, which starts at age 65.
Okay. So speaking of that ripple effect and the unintended consequences, how does Social Security come into play? I mean, talk to us about how is Social Security taxed and how does it come into play?
So if you are married filing jointly and you make certain incomes, you can actually pay 0% taxes on your Social Security benefit. $32,000 or less, is that the number?
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you go from $32,000 up to $44,000, up to 50% of your benefit can be taxed. And then if you make more income than that, then 85% of your Social Security benefit can be taxed. And so if you're a couple and you happen to be fortunate and have low living expenses and only living on Social Security, have zero taxes on that benefit, if you start doing any of these strategies, it could put you up into having 85% of your Social Security benefit taxed.
Okay, so you just have to weigh the cost benefit of the tax savings in the future on the Roth conversion versus the potential of increased taxes today.
And most of the CPAs that we're talking to are saying that it is better long-term to do those Roth conversions, pay the extra tax on your Social Security benefit because of those required distributions getting very large into the future potentially.
Right. Well, you could see it with the Trent and Savannah and just how large those RMDs were.
Right.
Yeah, good point. So speaking of RMDs and IRAs, I've seen some people make nasty mistakes when it comes to inherited IRAs. So mom or dad or a loved one dies passing on their traditional IRA, and I've just seen people really make some poor mistakes. Talk to us about that and talk to us about ways to avoid those big mistakes.
Yeah, a couple of things here. So the new rule is that if you inherit an IRA after 2019, that you have 10 years to fully deplete the account. And so there's some ways that there may be required minimum distributions, but it's not enough to fully deplete the IRA by the end of 10 years. And so what we saw with Savannah is that in her plan prior to talking with us is that she wanted to take the minimum out until the 10th year. But as you can see on the chart, on that 10th year, she's got a very large distribution that she has to have come out. And so that could be one of the ticking tax time bombs there. And so just know this is a new rule. There's not a lot of planning things that are in place to help people not run into these issues. So other things you just want to keep in mind is that Roth IRAs, the inherited ones, have the 10-year rule as well, but you could let that one cook for 10 years and maybe take the full distribution there.
Because it's totally tax-free.
Right, although it'll be a large distribution, you get 9-10 years to let these things grow tax-free, and then you could take it all out at once down into the future. But what we're seeing here today is with this inherited IRA for Savannah is that she's running into a landmine into the future.
Okay. So clearly there's a lot at play here. We have required minimum distributions. We have Roth conversions. We have the ripple effect and the unintended consequences of Medicare IRMAA and the net investment income tax and Social Security being taxed. So lots of variables here. But net, as you look at Trent and Savannah's situation, overall, do you feel like it made sense for them to do these conversions?
100%. I mean, they are not only decreasing their taxes to Uncle Sam, they're also increasing their liquid net worth over time. It's a win-win for everybody. They're getting to enjoy some more tax-free dollars during their retirement, and it was important to them, too, to pass on some tax-free wealth. So it's kind of hitting all the nails on the head.
Yeah. But one thing is clear is that it can be very complex very quickly. So the key is to have a plan, have a strategy, and be consistently evaluating that plan as you go in real time to be managing the overall strategy to help you save money on taxes, avoid those ticking tax time bombs, add some more dollars to the bottom line, and find financial peace and security because you know you've got a strategy that's going to help you win.
Yeah, make sure that that tax code is your friend. Get to know it. It's going to change, and so you always have something new to learn along the way.
Yeah, don't tip the IRS.
Yep.
So clearly this is complex and the rules are constantly changing. There's hundreds of rules that you have to understand. The tax code is very complicated. There's a lot going on. So if you want help on your journey, if you want to partner with somebody, use the link below to schedule a call. You'll get in touch with one of us and we're happy to help you navigate this and help you make good decisions to lower that tax bill in retirement.
And as always, please like, subscribe, share with a friend or a family member. We'd love to share our info with them as well.